Hello students, welcome to Epitome IAS. This is Mansoor. So as a part of Ncert series, in previous class we have seen the part 2 of the third chapter, and in today's class we will be seeing the part 3, and in this class we are going to see the remaining river system that is present in India. If you try to recollect, in yesterday's class we have seen Himalayan river system, and in today's class we will be seeing the Peninsular river system, right. So what is the main difference between Himalayan river system and Peninsular river system? Obviously, the point of origin and the landform or the feature of the landform which was present in the two different places is the main difference, right. If you see this particular Himalayan rivers, these Himalayan rivers are originated from Himalayan mountains, and because of the availability of these particular glaciers, these Himalayan rivers are perennial rivers. That means the rivers which flows continuously throughout the year. But when comes to peninsular rivers, obviously these rivers are not the perennial rivers. That means they won't be flowing continuously throughout the year. Majority of the water or the majority of the source for these particular rivers would be coming from the rainfall, which generally happens during the monsoon time, right. So this is the major difference, and we have seen that Himalayan rivers will be traveling for a longer distances when compared to the perennial rivers, right. So without any further delay, let's start the content or the topic which was given in this particular 9th class NCERT. And if you see here, under this topic peninsular rivers, he is saying that the water or the main water divide in this peninsular region is Western Ghats. So what does it mean? It means that this particular Western Ghat will be dividing the different or the two river basins or the two river systems, right. So in previous class we have seen that Ambala highland would be deviating, or it would be acting as an water divide between Indus river system and Ganga river system. Now in peninsular India, the Western Ghat act as water divide between the rivers, right. So what does it mean? It means that there are certain rivers which would be starting in Western Ghats and flowing towards the western side, and there are certain rivers which would be starting in Western Ghats and flowing towards the eastern side of this particular Western Ghats, right. Now if you see here he is saying that most of the major rivers of peninsula such as Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri flows eastwards, and after flowing eastwards, what happens? They would be going and draining into Bay of Bengal, and these particular rivers, right, the rivers which are moving eastwards, these rivers would be creating deltas, right. So these rivers would be creating deltas, where these rivers would be creating deltas at the point of confluence zone, right. The place where the river will be meeting with this particular sea, there we can see the formation of deltas. And how these deltas are formed? Again we have seen that these deltas are formed because of depositional activity which will be done by this particular river. All the sediments will get deposited at that particular place, right. Now the point here is the rivers which are flowing eastwards, right, which are originated from the Western Ghats, they would be forming these particular deltas near the coastal regions or near the mouth of that particular confluence. Now there are numerous small streams flowing west of the Western Ghats. Now what are the examples for the rivers which flows towards the western side? Narmada and Tapi, these are the big rivers, right. These are the long rivers which would be starting in Western Ghats, or else which would be starting in central highlands, and they would be flowing towards the western side, and they will be mixing with the Arabian Sea. So what are the examples? Narmada and Tapi rivers. Now these particular rivers which are moving or which are flowing towards the western side, they would be forming estuaries. Are you getting my point? These rivers which are flowing east side, they would be forming deltas, and those rivers which are flowing west sides, they would be forming estuaries at the point of confluence of this particular river with the sea. Now the drainage basin of peninsular rivers are comparatively small in size when compared to the Himalayan rivers, right. This is also an important point which we have to remember. What is that? The drainage basin, that means the area up to which or the area which is dependent on this particular river, right. So, that particular drainage basin is very, very small when compared with the northern Himalayan rivers. Now, if you see the first important basin which we have to read is the Narmada Basin. Now, if you see this Narmada Basin, where is the point of origin for this Narmada Basin? The origin is in Amarkantak Hills, and this Amarkantak Hills are there in Madhya Pradesh state. Now, this particular river, it would be flowing towards the western side from the point of origin, and this particular river would be flowing through a valley, right. What is that valley? It is an rift valley. That means the valley which is acting as, or else we can say that the zone or the area in between the two mountains is called as an valley, right. So, this particular river, after originating in Amarkantak Hills in Madhya Pradesh, they would be flowing towards the, or they would be flowing in a valley, that is a rift valley, and this particular rift valley is formed because of faulting of that particular area, right. Now, what is meant by faulting? Faulting is nothing but, for suppose whenever there is an divergence between two plates, you can observe the cracks would be happening in that particular boundaries, right. So, over a period of time, those cracks would be, the distance between those cracks would be increased, or the width of those cracks would be increased, right. So, that particular thing we call it as an fault. Now, this particular rift valley through which this Narmada river flows is formed because of faulting. Now, the point here is this particular river, right, on its way to sea, that means the journey, it begins from the point of origin, right, from the point of origin to the point of destination. This particular Narmada river, it will be creating a very beautiful picturesque locations. What does it mean? It means that the locations, either it might be the gorges or either it might be the meanders, whatever it is, right. So, this particular river, from the point of origin to the point of destination, you would be having a very beautiful scenic locations in that particular area. Now, if you see here the marble rocks near Jabalpur, where Narmada river flows through a deep gorge, and Daudar Falls, where the river plunges over steep rocks, are some of the notable ones. Now, if you see here, as I told you earlier, that is this particular river would be forming very beautiful scenic locations. So, here he has given examples, right. One example is this particular marble rocks near the Jabalpur district or near the Jabalpur in Rajasthan, and these particular Daudar Falls, right. So, these are the two best examples for picturesque locations which were formed by this particular Narmada river. Now, if you see here, all the tributaries of Narmada are very short, and most of these join the main stream at right angles, and Narmada Basin covers part of Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. What does it mean? It means that this particular Narmada river is having a lot of tributaries, and the point is the tributaries for these particular rivers is very, very, very small, right, and these particular Narmada Basin can be observed in the two states. One is Madhya Pradesh, second one is Gujarat. Now, the second basin is Tapi Basin. Again, this Tapi is a river which would be originating from central highlands, and it would be flowing towards the western side, and it would be joining the Arabian Sea, right. It is one of the westward flowing river. Now, Tapi river rises in Satpura ranges, and this particular Satpura range is situated in Madhya Pradesh state. Particularly, if you see Betul district, in Betul district of Madhya Pradesh state, you would be seeing these particular Satpura ranges, and from that Satpura ranges, we can see the origination of this particular river. And again, this particular river also will be flowing parallelly to the Rift Valley, right. This Rift Valley, or the flow or the movement of this particular river, would be parallel to the Narmada river. But the point here is, even though it is flowing parallelly to the Narmada river in Rift Valley, this particular river has very, very shorter length. And if you see the basin, right, it covers parts of Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat and Maharashtra. That means this particular Tapi river would be covering three important states. One is Madhya Pradesh, second one is Gujarat, third one is Maharashtra. Now, the coastal plains between Western Ghats and Arabian Sea are very, very narrow. Hence, the coastal rivers are shorter. What does it mean? It means that, see, when compared to peninsular rivers, Himalayan rivers are very, very longer. Peninsular rivers are very, very shorter. But in that peninsular river as well, if you see the westward flowing rivers, they are even shorter when compared to the eastward flowing rivers which are originated from the Western Ghats. Why? Because the distance between the Western Ghats and the Arabian Sea, that particular distance is very, very small. Now, irrespective of this Narmada river and Tapi river, there are some other rivers which would be flowing western side, right? What are those rivers? One is Sabarmati river, another one is Mahi river, and Bharatpula river and Periyar river, right? So, these rivers are examples for those rivers which would be flowing towards the western side of this particular Western Ghats, and they would be mixing with, or they would be joining this particular Arabian Sea. Now, the third important basin is Godavari Basin. And if you see this Godavari river, this is the largest peninsular river which we can see in peninsular plateau, right? Or else we can say that this is the second longest river, or else we can say that this particular river is called as an Dakshin Ganga, right? So, if you see this particular river, here he is saying that it is the largest peninsular river, and if you see the point of origin, this particular Godavari river would be originating in the Western Ghats, which are present in Nasik district in Maharashtra, right? So, this is the point of origin for this particular Godavari river, and if you see the length is 1500 kilometers, and obviously this particular river drains into Bay of Bengal, and as I told you earlier, the drainage basin of Godavari river is very, very large among the peninsular rivers that are present. Now, if you see the states which this particular Godavari river covers, it would be covering Maharashtra, right? About 50% of this particular Godavari basin is lying in Maharashtra state, and after that you can see Madhya Pradesh, you can see the presence of this Godavari basin in Odisha as well as Andhra Pradesh, and here Andhra Pradesh is nothing but the United Andhra Pradesh, right? Now, in modern day, this particular Godavari basin can be seen in Telangana, right? Telangana plus Andhra Pradesh. The Godavari is joined by a new number of tributaries such as Purna, Vardha, Pranahita, Manjra and Vaiganga and Penganga. So, these are the tributaries of Godavari river, and the last three tributaries are very, very larger when compared to the other tributaries, and because of its length and the area it is covering, this particular river is called as Dakshin Ganga, right? The fourth basin is Mahanadi Basin. Now, if you see this Mahanadi Basin, it rises in the highlands of Chhattisgarh, right? That means the point of origination is in Chhattisgarh state, and it flows through Odisha, and after flowing through Odisha, this Mahanadi river would be reaching Bay of Bengal, and if you see the length of this particular Mahanadi river, it is 860 kilometers, and the drainage basin of this particular Mahanadi river is shared by how many states? First one Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Odisha. 4 states would be having the drainage basin of this particular Mahanadi river, and the fifth one is the Krishna Basin. And if you see this Krishna Basin, where does this Krishna river started? Krishna river starts from the Mahabaleshwar, right? So, again this particular Krishna river, it flows 1400 kilometers and it would be reaching Bay of Bengal, and Tungabhadra, Koyana, Ghataprabha, Musi and Bhima are important tributaries of this particular Krishna river. And if you see the drainage basin is shared by Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana as well. Now, the sixth basin is the Kaveri Basin. Obviously, if you see this Kaveri Basin, where does this Kaveri river has been originated? From Brahmagiri ranges that are present in Western Ghats. And after originating from Brahmagiri ranges, this Kaveri river would be joining the Bay of Bengal in the south of Kadlur district, that is present in Tamil Nadu. And if you see the total length of the river, it is about 760 kilometers, and the main tributaries are Amravati, Bhavani, Hemavati and Kabini. These are the 4 important tributaries of this particular Kaveri basin. And this particular Kaveri basin we can see in 3 states. First one is Karnataka, second one is Tamil Nadu, third one is Kerala. So, in these 3 states we can see the presence of Kaveri basin. Beside these major rivers, there are some small rivers flowing towards the east. What does it mean? If you see the rivers which are flowing towards the eastern side, the major rivers would be Godavari River, Krishna River, Mahanadi, and the Kaveri River, right? So, not only these these rivers, right? There are some other rivers which would be flowing towards the eastern side. So, what are those? First one is Damodar River, Brahmani River, and Baitarni, as well as Subarna Rekha, right? These are also the eastward flowing rivers that would be originated and in Peninsular Plateau and will be joining the Bay of Bengal. Now, we have to see regarding the lakes, right? Generally, we are very familiar with the lakes, right? So, usually if you see the Kashmir, in Kashmir you can see the famous Dal Lake, right? This famous lake, that is Dal Lake, it is having very high tourist attractions, right? There you can find houseboats and shikaras which would be attracting thousands of tourists every year. Now, not only in Jammu and Kashmir, you can see India is having many lakes. If you see the Chilka Lake, Sambar Lake, right? So, Pulicat Lake, there are many different types of lakes that India is having, right? So, these differ from each other in the size and other characteristics. The most lakes are permanent lake. Some contains water only during rainy season, like the lakes in basins of inland drainage of semi-arid region. What does it mean? It means that India is having main, or else India is having a more number of or a huge number of lakes, right? So, these lakes would be differed in different ways. So, some lakes we can say on the basis of the size or on the basis of water that particular lake is having, and on the basis of the permanent nature, whether the water in the lake is permanent or the water in the lake is seasonal, right? Depending upon these conditions, we can divide the lakes into many types, right? So, there are some of the lakes which are of result of the action of glaciers and ice sheets, while others have been formed by wind, river action and human activities, right? So, these are the different types of reasons or different types of sources for a lake to be formed, right? Not every lake or not each lake would be having the same type of reason for the formation. Now, a meandering river across a floodplain forms cut-offs that later develops into oxbow lakes. Now, if you see here, the point is during the second phase and the third phase of this particular river flow, we have seen that meanders would be formed, and over a period of time what happens, that meanders would be converted into oxbow lakes, and this oxbow lake would be permanently cut off from the main stream, right? So, that is one type of lakes which can be formed because of the depositional activity of the river, right? So, that is oxbow lake. Now, here he is saying that these particular oxbow lakes would be formed permanently because of the depositional activity. Now, spits and bars from lagoons in coastal areas. Example, what is the example for lagoon? Chilka Lake, the Pulicat Lake and the Kolleru Lake. So, these are the examples for the spits and the bars. Now, spits and bars are the landforms which are created because of the depositional activity of the river, right? Now, lakes in the region of inland drainage are sometimes seasonal. For example, if you see the Sambar Lake, right, this Sambar Lake is present in Rajasthan and it is the largest inland salt water lake that is present in India. And this Sambar Lake is a seasonal lake. Whenever there is rainfall, you would be having water. Its water is used for producing salt, and the water which is present in this particular Sambar Lake, that water is used for preparation of salt. Now, most of the freshwater lakes are in Himalayan ranges. They are glacial origin. In other words, they formed when glaciers dug out a basin which was later filled with snow melt. The point is different types of lakes, right? So, these lakes which are generally present in Himalayan ranges. So, these Himalayan lakes are very, very fresh, water lakes. Why? Because they are formed because of these particular glaciers. Now, if you see the Ular Lake in Jammu and Kashmir is the result of a tectonic activity which is formed in the Himalayan zone. And Ular Lake is the freshwater lake in India, and Dal Lake, Bhimtal, Nainital, Loktak and Barapani are some other important freshwater lakes that are present in India. Now, apart from natural lakes, the damming of rivers the damming of rivers for generation of hydel power has also led to formation of lakes such as Guru Gobind Sagar Lake. What does it mean? So far we have seen the lakes which are formed naturally, but now there are certain lakes which are created because of the human activity, right? The best example would be Guru Gobind Sagar. And where does this Guru Gobind Sagar Lake present? Near the Bhakra Nangal project. Now, lakes are great value to human beings as the lake help to regulate the flow of river. During a heavy rainfall, it prevents flooding, and during dry season, it helps to maintain even few water lake. Now, the point is, see, so far we have seen regarding the rivers, right? So, not only rivers, even these lakes also the part of the entire drainage system. Now, these lakes would be acting as the supporting things. How? Whenever there is huge floods, the lakes would be taking the water from those floods, and it would be providing a cushion zone for the people, right? So, during dry time, what happens whenever the water in the river has been dried out, you can see the water in the lake would be helpful for the people who are depending upon that particular lake, right? So, in this way, lakes would be helping the human beings, right? Whenever there is a natural calamity, the lakes would be absorbing water. Whenever there is the drought kind of situation, the lakes would be giving water to the people. Right. Now, the role of rivers in Indian economy. Obviously, the rivers would be playing an important role. Why? Because of the rivers, we can see the formation of plains. Right. These plains are very, very good in the agricultural activity. So, when there is a very great agricultural activity, what happens? We would be seeing a huge amount of productivity, and you can see the more amount of development in that particular area. And these rivers or these particular rivers, they would be we can construct the hydel power projects, and we can construct inland navigation, and these rivers would be helping in the irrigation as well, right? So, even if you see in different ways, these rivers are very, very helpful for human beings in order to survive their life. Not only survival, even though these rivers are very, very helpful in building the economic conditions or in improving the economic conditions of human beings. Now, the other topic is river pollution. Obviously, river pollution is an important concern regarding these particular rivers. Now, if you see the Ganga river, majority of that particular river has been polluted, right? So, this pollution was done by the dumping of municipal waste, dumping of domestic waste, or dumping of industrial waste, right? So, all these things would be damaging or polluting this particular rivers. What happens if a river got polluted? Obviously, the ecosystem which was dependent on that particular river would get disturbed. So, once the ecosystem was disturbed, obviously what happens? Every link in that particular chain will get disturbed, right? If marine livings or the marine beings in that particular river has been disturbed, what happens? The people depending upon those marine would get affected, right? The fishermen won't be getting fishes, right? Their economical activity would be reduced, right? So, there is a lot of chain reaction which happens once the river starts getting polluted, right? There are, as I told you earlier, the reasons are very simple. One, dumping of domestic waste, dumping of the solid waste, or dumping of the industrial waste, right? So, all these things would hamper the health of this particular river. So, river pollution is very, very important concern which we have to focus on, right? So, that is regarding this particular drainage or the river system in India, and I hope you understood this particular video. In next video, we will be meeting with the new chapter, right? Until then, if you are having any doubts, please let me know in the comment section.